Let's hear it for the girls making waves in a traditionally male-dominated world. In this episode, I'm joined by Eveey Hunter, an arable farmer from Hertfordshire who spends her time between working the land, producing crops, being a working mother and campaigning on behalf of the National Farmers Union. Inspiring the next generation of farmers and flying the flag for British food and farming is what we are both about. Tune in if you want more. Hello, welcome to the Countryside Kitchen Meets, a food and farming podcast. I'm Milly Fyfe, your host. I'm a mum of two, farmer's wife, food producer, and passionate about flying the flag for British food and farming. Today we'll be chatting to Eveey Hunter, a Hertfordshire arable contract farmer who is big into multitasking. Then I've got a few time-saving hacks when it comes to mealtime preparation and some recipes to share, meaning you can juggle family life with the children and cook a tasty, nutritious meal too. Okay, so let me introduce you to my guest. Eveey Hunter lives in rural Hertfordshire, which ironically falls inside the M25. She helps to manage her family's arable contracting business, and they also run a haulage company too. In addition, she side hustles for two external transport companies and helps prepare farmers for their farm assurance audits. Eveey is the National Farmers Union chairman of the Next Generation Forum, which was set up to give younger farmers within the organisation an opportunity to shape policy and influence areas which affect them. Eveey has a 1-year-old son, aptly named Hunter, and a cocker spaniel, and in her spare time she enjoys cooking, swimming and going to the gym. I first came across Eveey when she posted some tasty meals on social media that she'd prepared to take to the team out combining last summer. These meals were not your average mobile food deliveries. They looked divine and I'm sure kept the gang fueled up into the night. A mum, a businesswoman, a team player, a leader. I want to know what vehicle she enjoys driving the best. So without further ado, let's chat to Eveey. Hello, how are you?
Hi, Milly. That's all very kind what you've just said about me.
Oh, wow, you're very inspiring. I mean, I've followed your career and obviously found you on social media and you're doing some amazing things. How do you fit it all in?
A lot of juggling. I use that word most days.
Yeah,
a lot of juggling, prioritizing, making sure that the important farm stuff gets done, and then everything with the baby gets done, and then I come somewhere last.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah, and a very helpful mum of my own. Couldn't do it without her.
Oh, I know, absolutely. It's having that support network, isn't it? It really does make a difference. So come on, tell me, what is your favourite vehicle or the best vehicle to drive? You're obviously driving various different machinery. What's your best or favourite?
Yeah, we have a whole fleet of Fendt tractors, so probably any of them, to be honest. Harvest time, I get a Fendt 828, which is pretty nice as a corn carting vehicle. So yeah, probably that one.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously you and I, we're kind of quite used to working in a stereotypical man's world. Do you still get odd looks from people when you're driving big pieces of kit, or you just sort of take it as it goes?
Oh, I get odd looks, but I just embrace it, wave at them. Yeah, you'd think that they'd just been run over, or yeah, I'm pretty short as well, so people will say that they've seen like a tractor driving itself coming down the road, but it's actually new. I love it. I've got HGV as well, so I'll drive lorries, and yeah, you do get funny looks, but yeah, I think it's funny. I love it.
Yeah, no, fair play to you. No, I think it's brilliant. It's fantastic. Well done. Well, can you tell me a little bit about your backstory? Have you always been involved in agriculture? Were you born into it, or just explain to the listeners a little bit about, you know, who you are and where you've come from?
Yeah, I was born into it, so I've lived here all my life. My dad was born here on the farm. My grandparents moved down from Scotland over 60 years ago. They've got a big story about that, how they put all the cows and the tractors on the train and came down. So yeah, I've been involved forever. Probably wasn't really heavily involved or really interested until I was sort of 13, 14, because the first school I went to, it was sort of made like it was weird, not normal. And I hate that, looking back on that now. And then I went to another school which was sort of more rurally based, and then realized actually it's really cool, and I'm incredibly privileged to live where I live. Since I left school at 16, did a very short stint at an ag college, but it just really wasn't for me, and I just preferred this learning on the job option. So I left, did a load of qualifications, like did my PA 1 and 2, did my HGV, did my transport manager qualification, and then I've worked for 2 sort of larger businesses who are doing haulage and grain storage, and learned a lot from them that I've then brought back to my own farm. And I've been working for the family business for 4 or 5 years now, and all sorts of stuff on the side.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's really interesting that you obviously went down the academic route and recognized quite early on that it wasn't for you and wanted to do sort of more practical qualifications on the job. You know, is that you know, within your friendship group, did everyone else just go down the academic route, or, you know, have you found your way, or is that your learning style, for example?
I think just learning by doing, really, it just worked for me. I think I was the only person from my year group at school who didn't go to uni, so I went to college instead to do a national diploma in agriculture. But I really it just wasn't for me. I didn't enjoy it. I just wanted to be back home. I felt like I wasn't really, there are definitely sort of gaps in my knowledge that I think I would like to now do a course, like go and do my basis, for example, because I think that's like a gap in my knowledge that I need on the farm in the future. But that's something that, I can go and do a course, and I can, I can fill that. But at the time it just wasn't for me. And I wouldn't have had the 2 jobs that I had, working for massive businesses, earning silly money, really. I wouldn't have had those had I had those 4 years or whatever at college or uni.
So in a way, I mean, I'm a bit like you. I kind of did my qualifications whilst working. And do you think that sort of really helped you to get ahead, you know, because you haven't got the student debt, you're obviously learning on the job, so you are sort of advancing in your career whilst you're earning money, which you can then put down into your future, really. Whereas obviously if you go to university, generally you're obviously away from home for 3 or 4 years, and you are racking up student debt all along. You're not working, you're just learning, aren't you?
I just for me, it was I suppose the money thing as well. Like, it's not all about money, certainly not in farming, but no. I was on a really well-paid job. Well, friends of mine were telling me that, you know, they've just finished uni, they've got this degree, but then they can't find a job. And I was getting paid at the time a salary that I never thought I would get. I certainly don't get it now. But so you do have, for me, it just, that's just the way that it worked out.
Oh, fantastic. And so you know, talk to me a little bit about the farm then. What does it comprise of, and what do you produce?
So where I live it's a county council farm, actually. So we rent probably a third of what we farm, contract or share farm the other 2/3. We're doing sort of 3,500 acres, purely combinable arable crops, so like wheat, barley, oats, rape, beans. Occasionally we do maize for AD, but not this year. And then so we're just doing large scale commodities, selling those to merchants, smaller merchants, bigger merchants, whoever's offering the best money at the time. We keep that pretty simple. It means that we can keep pretty sort of skeleton staff throughout the year. It's just family, really. A couple more maybe in harvest, but it's really hard to find people, so we just try and do what we can do ourselves. We have a high ab lorry. I had bulkers in the past, but the rates on grain haulage really fell. Now they're through the roof again, typically, when we've sold the lorry. So we do that. We've got a gritting company that we do on the side as well. That keeps us busy this time of year. yeah, we're always into different types of diversification that we
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to do without the farm. So
Yeah, that's sort of like the mainstay, and from that other kind of diversifications have come as a result. And
yeah,
so
exactly.
is everything kind of situated in one yard, in one space, or have you got stuff dotted about across
Everything's mainly from one yard. One of our contract farms, we've got a big grain store there, and we can store some kit there as well. But everything's pretty much based at the farm where we live. That keeps it simpler.
Yeah. And you were talking about obviously growing crops for AD. So some of the listeners that perhaps might not understand what that means, anaerobic digestion, it's growing crops for fuel, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And then we also use the byproduct of that, which is digestate, which is an amazing fertilizer and obviously a lot cheaper than buying synthetic fertilizers, especially at the moment. So we've got a couple of digestate tanks on the farm, and we have a certain amount of sort of cube or tonnage that we can use throughout the year on the crops. So it's almost like doing circular farming, if you like, when we have maize in the rotation, which is brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. And presumably as well, you're really sort of the cutting edge of technology with satellite mapping and GPS on tractors and things like that, and precision farming. I mean, those sorts of elements of tech within arable farming is becoming more the norm, isn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing really what you can do and how precise everything can be now. I think you have to be ultimately more efficient. You've got to know exactly what you put. Like, we only use liquid fertilizer, also for that reason, really just precision, to know that everything that you buy is going to end up on your field and not next door or in the hedge.
Yeah, and the water companies are quite keen for
exactly.
that too.
Especially where we live. Yeah, they're very hot on it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, how do you fit in your NFU role around the farm, family life, everything else? Because presumably that takes a little bit of time. You know, you're probably going to meetings and events and things. How do you kind of juggle that?
Again, with my mum, pretty much. I seem to say to her all the time, "Oh, mum, can I see your diary?" Just planning, or sometimes saying no, which I'm not very good at, because there's lots of things that you get invited to as a forum chair. So there's forum chair meetings all the time. I can go to any commodity or board meetings or regional meetings, and I'll sort of pick the ones that would be beneficial maybe for them or for me to go to. But yeah, I definitely sometimes have to say, no, I can't go to that, and sort of prioritize. But yeah, definitely very appropriate. But yeah, I couldn't do it without my mum.
Yeah. Oh, and I mean, no, fair play. I mean, it's become quite a prestigious role within the NFU, hasn't it? And you know, how did that come about? How did you become involved in the first instant?
I went along to conference with Jamie, a friend of mine who was county chair at the time, in 2020. He just said, like, "Oh, do you want to come along? There's not enough young people." So I was like, yeah fine.
Isn't Jamie Burrows?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
He took me along. He told me he had all these future plans. I was going to be this in the future. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll just come along, lured in by walkabout and, you know, all sorts of things.
The social side of things, yeah.
And I just felt really inspired. I remember in the crops, like breakout session, there was a couple of young girls that spoke in front of obviously this whole big room of arable farmers. And I was like, wow, like I want to be like you, like be confident enough to talk about farming in front of all these people. And then shortly after that, I had an email about the ambassador program from another woman, Roz, who was our county advisor. And she said, oh, you should you should give it a go. So I wrote an application and then did that for a year. Sadly, it was COVID, but obviously that was amazing, a real confidence boost to be like a face for the NFU and for the industry. And then that ended, and they started talking about how they're bringing new people into the next gen forum, and I thought, oh yeah, I could do that. And then they were also doing chair and vice chair, and it seemed like no one else really wanted to be chair or vice chair. And I'm always a bit of, yeah, why not, I'll do it, if I'm going to do it I might as well do it properly. So then I got voted in as chair, and then here we are.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And I'm just juggling my way through. But yeah, it's great. And the rest of the forum are great. Liv, who's the vice chair, she's been on the forum for a long time, so she knows sort of the ins and outs. So we make a good team.
How many of is there like sort of 10 or 12 of you as ambassadors or on the forum?
There's, I think, 13 of us on the forum, 9 girls and 4 boys.
Yeah, amazing. Oh, that's
Yeah.
really good. That's really good. And what do you think you've learned from being involved and done that? Has that sort of exposed you to different things or given you more confidence, or, you know, what have you gained from being involved?
You definitely meet a lot of people, and because we sort of have a platform, I guess, of being the next gen forum. You know, I can email, like I wanted to speak to somebody from the commercial team at Red Tractor while we were down in Westminster one day. So I email, like, you know, I am the chair of the next gen forum, and it just kind of gives you are somebody, and somebody that's worthwhile them speaking to as well. Not just saying, oh, hi, I'm Eveey, and I'd like to come and speak to you.
Yeah.
So that's really useful. And we met an MP that day as well, which we wouldn't have, you know, I couldn't just be like, hi, I want to meet you. We have like a platform.
Yeah.
Of having the NFU, and you meet people. I think it does build your confidence, but you have to just be confident to just go and walk up to people, even at like the conference, and just say, oh yes, I'm so and so, and then. Whereas before it might have been like intimidating to just go and speak to anybody. Yeah, it is a massive confidence boost.
Yeah. No, I can totally relate, because I you know, what you're saying is, you know, from being involved in that arena, it does open doors and you are able to then speak. But that's an incredible influence as well, because then you are, you know, from a young person, you're kind of getting to the people that are creating the policy, that are like shaping things, and they need to listen to more people like yourself, because at the moment, you know, they've got a kind of a lot of people that are making these rules and policies are kind of quite set in their ways, and it's a bit, unless they listen and understand how that might impact on different people from different sectors and different ages and different demographics, it's never going to work, or it's not going to reflect what is needed. So, you know, having that influence and that input is incredibly important. So good on you. And you know, hopefully you've got lots of others sort of going to follow in your footstep as well, because presumably you're only allowed to sort of stay in that role for a certain amount of time.
Yeah, I think the sort of term is 2 years, and you can't do more than 2. But there's a bit of a shape up within the NFU anyway of how they're running boards and forums and things. So we're having a bit of a sort of changing those sort of rules that might have been in for a few years anyway. So yeah, I'm not sure how it will look in a year's time, but hopefully, as long as we're still influencing young people into the industry, that's really the most important thing.
Definitely. And so what does the future look like for you? What are your ambitions? Do you want to sort of be the next Minette Batters? Do you want to kind of, you know, work your way up the NFU, or have you got other kind of priorities at the moment?
Next Minette Batters is a high one to reach for. I'd like to be as stylish as her. She always looks great, doesn't she?
Yeah.
I would like to see sort of what else I could do within the NFU, possibly more like a commodity type role. But yeah, I'm not sure really. I've probably got at the minute, and I'll probably just see where it takes me, rather than having something, a set in stone ambition, because I've sort of got my own ambitions business wise as well. I suppose, of course, I'm always going to be helping to manage the farm at home, but I'd like to have my own business career alongside it. I've sort of have these small pockets of side hustles, I do a bit of bookkeeping here for some farms, and a bit of audit preparation and haulage stuff and all stuff like that. I'd like to do something maybe like in the grain marketing trade. I just think that's so interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I might just fall into something. I know
Yeah.
people say that doesn't happen, but I think it does in this industry.
Yeah, I think, and again, I'm a firm believer it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I think in the networks you're exposed to, it's just happen to be in a room and have a conversation with someone and they make an introduction. So yeah, I like the fact that you don't necessarily have a plan, but actually just being a little bit kind of relaxed about things as well. But you're making such a difference. And, I look at some of the things that you're posting on social media and I'm thinking, you are really inspiring. And, I think, whatever you do, I'm sure you'll be very successful, especially because you are already spinning the plates. And I think the thing from my advice to you is to make sure that you look after you as well, because if you're not well or you've got too much going on, then you're not going to be able to do all of the amazing things, so I always think self-care is a huge part, or I try my hardest. It is a really important part of my life, is kind of trying to look after me, because if I'm not well, then I can't look after the kids, my husband, my own business, the farm, and everything else I do. So it's you've got to sometimes be a little bit selfish as well.
Yeah, that's what my 6 a.m. gym and swim sessions are for. One of those this morning, but that does really, it sets me up for the day, for the week, to be honest. I feel really rubbish if I've come out of that routine. I have to go when Hunter's still asleep, and that's really when I can go, and that really does set me up for feeling good for the day.
No, that's a really good routine to sort of to keep at, because it is very easy to kind of go, I can't be bothered to get out of bed, or and then it's whereas if you kind of get up and you have that kind of mindset, then it kind of sets you up for the day, and you can achieve so much more. So let's talk about cooking. I've obviously alluded to the fact that I saw that you'd posted last year that you'd created lots of meals for the workforce. You enjoy cooking. What are your go-to recipes and meals that you'd prepare each week?
I always like a one dish or two dish meal. I'm not one of those 7 pans, and especially you say about doing the harvest meals. When I've gone out, driven out there, taken everyone's dinners, brought back, I've got 8 pots to wash anyway. The last thing I want to do is then be washing another load of pots. So something that you can just cook all day, not to sound really privileged, but in the Arga, the farmhouse kitchen, and you can just bung it in the oven all day, and then it'll be 10 times nicer when you come to it, chili or sausage casserole, or do a fajita chicken thing similar, or mac and cheese. Just something you can cook up, shove into a big dish, and then divide it by how many people happen to be in the field that evening or in the kitchen that evening. That could be that can range as well.
Well, that's the beauty of it, isn't it? Because people might come in at different times, but you're able to just serve up a bit for them, and then you still got other. It's not like you kind of cooking up something and everyone's got to be at the table at the same time to eat,
No, that never happens.
No. And similarly, when you're taking it out to the field and what have you, you don't know what if there's going to be a breakdown, or you're working really late hours, and you just got to because farming is so reliant on the weather, isn't it? And during harvest time, you go when the going's good, don't you? And you work all night, especially when the moisture's right, as that saying goes. So.
Yeah, exactly. Or if there's a breakdown, that probably means there's 2 fitters there. So I'll always ring just before I'm going to start preparing dinner and be like, is anyone else there? Because we always like to feed them if someone else is there, or if some combine reps come out or something, we'll bring them dinner, because it's no biggie. But then you hope that when our combine's broken and someone else's is as well, they'll think, oh, we'll go to the Hunters, because last time we had this really yummy dinner.
Absolutely. And they're working late hours as well, and you sort of think, definitely, it's all part of it. And I think that's what another sort of part of our industry as well. We do work hard, we work long hours, but we all look after each other as well. And I think that's super important. So
yeah, definitely.
I'll remember that when I'm driving through Hertfordshire and
Yeah, definitely.
call in, absolutely. How can people find out a little bit more information about you?
Probably follow my daily ramblings on Twitter.
Yeah. So what's your handle?
Farmer Eves.
Yeah. Fab.
Very stereotypical.
Yeah.
I have a farm Instagram as well,
Yeah.
which is JS Hunter Farm. So that's more like pictures of kit if you're into that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You got it's like me. I've got different audiences for different things. You know, I do my foodie stuff on one, and I do farm life on the other. And sometimes it crosses over, but I think sometimes it's quite good to kind of know your audience, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. I think Twitter's a bit of a free for all. Well, like you saw my, I post my harvest dinners on there, which some people really think what's going on.
Yeah.
But I mean, my dad he normally sort of runs the dryer shed and loading lorries and stuff in harvest. And he'll randomly post like, oh, what's in your lunchbox today? Because if you're going up and down the field all day, like farmers get bored. So they'll, any random chat that's aside from like what moisture is the wheat, they're there for. So I like to post a curveball every now and then.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the thing, it can be quite repetitive and it can be quite lonely when you're just in a tractor cab all day, and just to have that kind of out that looking at what other people are doing, isn't it? It's like that goldfish bowl, isn't it? And equally those outside of farming get a little bit more of an insight as to what it takes to put food on the table and the man hours that is involved. So I think it's hugely important for a lot of ways, a lot of reasons.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you say outside of farming, I think there's a lot more teaching to be done there about teaching people what really goes into it, because I'm not sure that a lot of people have the grasp of that, but we'll keep beating the drum.
Well, that's the thing, you and I are quite similar in that respect. I mean, that's sort of part of the premise of not only this podcast but my food blog and my e-cookery book is sort of bridging a gap between food produced in the UK and how to make a tasty meal. And it is about that sort of field to fork education, and about, did you realize that sugar is grown in this country? Did you realize how wheat is produced, grown and then milled into what have you? It's kind of, I think a lot of the time, because the education system there's different priorities, children especially are not exposed to different things, but also adults. There's a generation that have not done food technology. I mean, I remember doing food tech at school, but it was very basic, but I learned a lot from that. And even now, like, it just doesn't occur anymore. And so very influential people, very clever, intelligent people come to me and say, I've never cooked a roast dinner, I wouldn't know what to do, or how do you boil an egg? And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, but I'm not going to, but I'd rather help people and inspire people to know how to do that, rather than being like, oh, are you silly? Because again, people are so busy that we've become more reliant on processed food and just shoving it in the oven or going out for a meal because we can. And so now it's kind of, right, well, what can we do? How can we break this down and get information? So social media plays such a big part, because people scroll, don't they, in the evening, and you've got to grab their attention and sort of lead them to information that you do want them to know about. So I think you and I are onto something, definitely.
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay. Here are some time-saving hacks for you to try at home. Let's talk meal planning. Do you get to the end of the day and panic about what to prepare for tea? Do the kids come in and instantly want to be fed? I have got into a great mindset and routine of planning a week's worth of meals. I sit down on a Sunday night and I think, what have I got in the fridge? What have I got in the freezer? What's growing in the garden? And prepare for the week ahead. It used to take me a lot of, it used to fill up a lot of my headspace. And now I can quickly prepare a meal knowing what I've got, everything I need in the cupboards. An example of my meal plan would be on a Monday, I do chicken gnocchi. steak, chips and peas on a Tuesday, and that is because the kids are fed elsewhere that day. I don't tend to cook steak and chips for the kids, or they normally hover around if I'm cooking it. Shepherd's pie on a Wednesday, beef casserole on a Thursday, bacon carbonara, fish and chips on Saturday, and then a roast dinner on a Sunday. And then often on a Monday, I then use the leftover meat from the Sunday roast to either make a stir fry, a pie, or a curry. In season right now, broad beans, tomatoes, raspberries, strawberries. All of this produce is packed full of goodness and grown here in the British Isles. I grow all of these things in my garden, but I never tend to have chance to cook them, as the kids seem to go out in the garden and snaffle them up before I get a chance. One thing I do love to grow and enjoy cooking are new potatoes. Homegrown taste even better, and the variety I tend to opt for are Charlotte. They are super tasty salad new potatoes and are delicious hot with some butter or cold as part of a potato salad. I boil the new potatoes for around 15 minutes until soft and serve hot with butter or allowed to cool, and add some mayonnaise or cream cheese, some snipped chives and a pinch of salt. How does that sound, Eveey? Do you quite partial to a new potato?
I actually think that I could be listening to myself. It's almost like a tradition in our family. When my great grandpa was alive, till he was 100, he'd have a barbecue for his birthday every August. We stopped combining, and it was like new potatoes with butter were the staple. They are Scottish. I don't know if that means that's why, but yeah, they were literally like the staple, and I make them all the time, just like that. Or in a salad. On a warmer day, we'll just have new potatoes and like salad and meat for harvest tea, because that's what my granny always used to do.
Yeah,
definitely a staple in my house as well.
Oh, amazing. Oh, that sounds well, I just can't explain how, growing your own new potatoes as well are just the difference in the taste. And also, I get my kids down the bottom of the garden and they're digging them up and they're finding the worms, and and for me, that kind of exposure to dirt and also growing your own as well, and then bringing it into the kitchen and then enjoying it is, for me, one of life's simple pleasures. But just when you are shopping, is to kind of appreciate and look for things that are in season, look for the red tractor logo, look for the provenance, because actually it not only helps with food security, food sustainability, but low food miles as well, and you're sustaining people in rural communities. So for me, that's the sort of a big part of why I bang the drum, really. So okay, that's all we got time for today. Don't forget to tune into the next episode of the Countryside Kitchen Meets on the 1st of each month. You can subscribe on all major podcast streaming platforms. And get in touch. Would you like to be on a future episode? How about sponsoring a future episode? It actually costs quite a bit to organise and edit and get a podcast out there. And obviously it reaches a lot of people. So if you're listening and you're part of a business that would potentially be interested in sponsoring, please do get in touch. And want to chat to me about what you do and share some recipes, drop me a line at hello@millyfyfe.com. You can also follow my food blog, No Fuss Meals for Busy Parents, on Facebook, Instagram, and at www.nofussmealsforbusyparents.com for top tips, time-saving hacks, and recipe ideas. Thank you so much for joining me today, Eveey. I've really enjoyed learning more about everything that you do. And I know the listeners will have taken so much from it. So please do keep up the amazing work.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me.
Well, I caught up with you eventually, didn't I?
Yeah. We're busy people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, thank you very much. And I hope you can tune in again soon. See you next time. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.